Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Get Wealth podcast. Today I have Luke Rotvold on the show. I'm super excited about this because you're really killing it out there in the real estate world. I saw you on Brent Daniels' podcast, and he's another big player. And I heard you say that you were doing deals in Prescott, which is where I'm at. So I was like, no way, I gotta talk to this guy and see how that's possible. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm excited to be here.
So maybe just start with a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do.
Yeah, so I basically got into real estate when I was 24. Before that, I bartended in Phoenix. So like you said, I'm from Prescott, moved to Phoenix for college. Went to college, took me 7 years, realized it was not for me. And then so then I got into real estate shortly after that. But when I was in college, I was bartending and stuff just to make it by and all that. But then got into real estate. I joined the team. We started kind of doing some wholesaling, and then the two owners of the team that I was on broke up. So then I ended up kind of going my own direction. But when I was with them, I learned a lot with them. It was a good way to start it out. We started kind of getting into wholesaling, and we had some good success there. So I kind of really learned the ropes and kind of found out exactly which route to go and how I wanted to do it. And then when they split up, I ended up kind of going over with my best friend, and we joined kind of our teams and basically put it together, just the two of us. And then we started getting rolling, learning the ropes, doing it on our own. And, 7 years later now, it's gone from wholesaling and flipping to buy and holds, rental properties, Airbnbs, multifamily. So it's been a really fun journey, but the last 7 years we've been able to grow quite a bit. So.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. It's motivating to hear stories like that. Do you think that you're one of those people that wasn't fit for school or getting that type of job? You think that's eventually what led you to doing this? Is that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, not even a question. I mean, when I was in high school, I got decent grades, but I never got good grades. I knew I was never going to get a scholarship anywhere. It was just not my cup of tea. I have ADD too, so it's like, it was always hard for me in school to just sit there. So then, when, it was one of those things where at college, I always kind of wanted to do it because my parents really wanted me to do it as well. And, it's one of those things where you always, it's going to be good for you in the long haul just to have it, great as a backup plan. But yeah, I mean, it was basically, obviously it took me 7 years. So, no, it was not for me. I knew, the longer that I stayed in it, and kind of, I got my degree in hospitality. So it's like a business major, hospitality minor, but it was just, I hate to say it, but I saw kind of like the money. I was driven by the money. It was a big part for me. I saw that the industry that I was going down, it was like, okay, you're going to have to spend, 15 years in that industry to get to like 125K. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. That's not for me. And so, then I just kind of started looking like, what's the top? Okay. So the top, was like a GM. And, I just started asking a lot of questions because I was working at the Hyatt. I was there for 5 years. And I kind of started to find out like, man, like, okay, GMs make like a quarter, like they make like, around $250,000. And it's like, but it's like, it takes like 20 years to get there. And I'm like, that's not going to work, man. That's not going to work for me. So yeah, real estate was a way to really make sure you can fast track that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it seems like that the school is, I don't know how many people it's actually meant for, because you don't really get a lot of options growing up. You kind of just have this track where you do the next thing. And then it seems like college, okay, you pick a job and you go to school, when really there's just a whole world of opportunity and so many different things you can do. So it's,
and it's so true too. Like you see all these memes, and you see people talking about like when you're in high school, you learn all this stuff that you're never gonna know. Like you're never gonna need it. Like I don't need to know the the square root of 785. Like, when am I ever going to use that? Or like what a parallelogram is. Like, again, these are just things that they're never gonna come up in real life. So
You've
that's
never
fun.
looked at a flip and like saw the angle of a wall and thought that the hypotenuse was off or something?
Yeah, and then, like, don't get me wrong, like, there's obviously there's definitely there's definitely industries where you have to know this stuff. Like, if you're a doctor, I think, yeah, obviously if you're a doctor, I want to make sure someone knows what the hell they're doing. Or if you're an architect or something like that, like, yeah, you got to know these things. But if you're not going into those specialized industries, in my opinion, I don't know, I just don't think it's like super important.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. So what actually showed you real estate? Because I know for me, not that I'm doing anything on the close to the same realm as you, but I thought you had to be a real estate agent to get into real estate. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna try to do that. And then the more you talk to people, like when you're looking for it, answers kind of come. How did it work out for you?
So I mean, basically, my wife Sage had actually started with Brent, and his partner at the time was Dustin. She actually went and got her real estate license, and then she was working with them, and then she kind of found out it wasn't really for her to do the whole sales side of just like cold calling and everything. And so I got into it because I hit it off with them like really well. We just really got along. So I met them through when they would do like their quarterly meetings and stuff like that, or their quarterly we'd do like dinners and stuff. And so I really hit it off with them. And they're like, we want you to come try it out. And so I went and did it. And yeah, I didn't have to have a license. I was just literally doing cold calls. I was just hitting the phones. So it's really just sales. Like, if you're good at sales, you can do this, no problem. And yeah, I mean, it was from that point, I started with just cold calling and doing like a couple hours a day. Cause cold calling's got a bad rap in more than one way. Obviously, in one way, you just annoy, you bug people all day long. But then the other way too is that it's not easy. You can beat your head against a wall basically. And so it was tough. But then what I did that changed everything was I started playing Madden while I was cold calling. And so that's what I do I do that to this day. So 7 years later, I just play Madden when I'm cold calling. But that was a game changer for me, because it was like calling a couple hours a day, and it was kind of like, okay, this is getting old. But then I started hooking Madden online, hooking it up, and dude, I'd play like 5-6 games a day while I was cold calling. At the end of the day, I'd look down and I'd be like, damn, I just made 85 contacts today. And it didn't even feel like it. I'm like, no, I want to keep playing Madden. So it's like it was like a release, and it ended up being like a blessing to find that out, because that's really what's kind of excelled and kind of pushed me to where what we've been able to do right now.
Yeah, they don't teach you that in school, that's for sure.
Yeah, sit back and play video games, man. That's all you got to do in life.
That's so cool. Yeah, and I gotta plug it real quick. I got your book. It's been super helpful. The Viking cold calling book, or Become a Cold Calling Viking, which, for people that don't understand what we're talking about, cold calling is just a marketing strategy to find motivated sellers in this instance. So however you can track it, that's what the book does, is it shows you how many contacts you made, and you can log everything. So it's super helpful. It's been worked really well for me. And you're a cold calling beast, right? Like, you still do it, and you're at a point where you probably don't need to, right?
Yeah, that's honestly the number one question I get, is because a lot of people that business owners and stuff. So usually the route that people go is that they'll start with cold calling, something like that, and then they'll get out of it as soon as possible because it's not fun, or they don't enjoy it. So it's usually one of those jobs that you like try to outsource quickly. So you'll hire people for that. Given we've done that too. We have outside cold callers as well. But I mean, number one question I get is, why do you still cold call? Like, your business does, so we've done 5 straight years of doing $1 million a year, at least $1 million a year now, in assignments. But so it's like, the number one question is, why are you doing it? Like, you could just hire people to do that. And it's like, my answers are always like, one, because I enjoy playing Madden anyway, so it's like there's nothing better for me to do when I'm playing than to call. And it's like when I'm getting deals, it just makes sense. I get like a high off of. There's nothing better than when you get a deal. When you close a deal off of a cold call, it's the best feeling ever. We closed one last week that we just sold for 75 grand, and it was literally just off of a cold call that I've been following up with. So it's like I said, you're not, it's tough to make that money elsewhere. And given we've already put the people in place for where we have, other callers and stuff like that. So it's just kind of the cherry on top right now. But then the other reason is because it keeps me sharp. Like, when my team, comes to me with certain questions, stuff like that, it's nice for me to be able to say, yeah, I know, I know what's going on. Where if you're not doing it every day, if you're not staying in the grind of that, you can kind of get away from it to where you're like, I don't really know. I couldn't tell you, but I can kind of give them the answer every single time. So.
Yeah, that's great. If you were to talk to yourself, like 5 or 10 years ago or whatever it was before you
Right.
started, do you think you could imagine where you are right now? Was this like what you were picturing, doing $1 million a year? Like, was that possible in your brain to even think of?
So, I was always like a very goal-oriented person. So I mean, like, even from when I was like 20, 21, I would set aside time to read. And so I would read and I would journal and I would always like say like what my goals were. So my wife Sage will say that too. Like, she remembers when we first met, I was 21, and I would I would go like sit in like the hot tub and I would just sit there with my journal, and I would basically like write out exactly what I wanted to happen and I'd write like notes from books and stuff. And so I told her, I was like, yeah, I want to have a duplex, and once I sell the duplex, I want to have a fourplex, and maybe we'll live in one of the units, and we could like basically be living there for free, and then also have a lot of money coming back from it. It ended up going a little bit different route, but like that was always something that I was really, really passionate about, was kind of tracking everything. So my biggest goal, once I really got into real estate, was I wanted to become a millionaire by 30. So that was like my number one goal. And so like I would say, I wouldn't say that I always envisioned of where I wanted to be, but it's always one of those things where you never really know if it's going to happen. You always know you want to put the work in. So that was always a goal of mine. And it ended up happening. So I would say it was one of those things where like, yeah, I did envision it. But it was a lot of hard work, and it was one of those things where, it took the time for sure.
Yeah, I heard a quote the other day that was something to the effect of, most successful people are the ones who are willing to do extremely ordinary things for the longest amount of time. Like,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's literally being consistent. So I read a quote that it was something along those lines, but it was like, you have to learn to do the things that nobody else wants to do, and if you can do them at a high level, you'll get paid like handsomely for it. And it's so true. Like, nobody wants to cold call. It's another industry that people do really well in, is door knocking too. Or door to door sales for whatever, man. I mean, I've got some buddies that do door to door sales for solar, and I've got some other buddies that do door to door sales for pest control. And I mean, yeah, they make 250 to 400,000 a year as well. And it's like it's crazy, just from door knocking, going door, random sales companies. So
Yeah, well, it's one of those skills that is kind of timeless, right? If you can sell something, no one's going to tell you to stop selling things, right? In theory,
yeah,
you could just keep going and
yeah.
to infinity.
Yeah, and the longer that you do it, the better you're going to get at it. You're going to hone in on your skills, and you're going to be like, okay, don't say this, do say this. This is working for me. This isn't working for me. I notice every time I say this, it kind of turns someone off. Every time I say this, it kind of gets them more interested in what I'm doing. So,
Yeah. So being at a point where you've seen a lot of success in the results of putting in a lot of that work, what's the thing that keeps you going? Like, what's your why? What makes you motivated and wanting to keep going to that next level?
for me, it's my so
Mhm.
100%. I've got my wife. We've got 2 kids, and then we've also got a third on the way. So we've got a third on the way, and then my parents, my wife's parents. I mean, it's for me, it's like I always kind of have, there's, it's one of those things where it's tough because you want to be content. You want to be content with like not having to feel like you always need more. But then at the same time, you always don't want to just settle. You know what I mean? Like you want to consistently be reaching for more though. So I think there's like a very fine line in my eyes of like being happy and being grateful. I guess grateful is the best word to use of where you're at and what you have accomplished. But always making sure that, you're not settling and continuing to go for more. Cause I mean, every time I get super like uncomfortable, every time I try to do something uncomfortable is when I see growth in our business the most. Where it's like when I sit, when I find myself being the most like, kind of relaxed and everything, that's when I kind of notice that our business does, the least, does the worst, So, I mean, yeah, I think that's big, but my why is definitely, I want to give, my family just a life that I want us to live.
Mhm.
And it includes, not having to work if I don't want to. The biggest thing for me is cash flow. I really want to get that cash flow just, to a stupid number to where it's like, we can do anything that we want. We can go on vacations, if the kids, if they want to go to a certain school, they can go to a certain school. I want to retire my parents. My parents are up in they're like lower 60s now, which they both work. My mom and dad both work for us now anyway. So we've been able to kind of really, make that work, which has been really fun. But no, I would love to be able to retire my parents, Sage's parents, and then just be able to, live the life we want to live.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Yeah, I think that's something that is everyone can relate to. There's a thing that the more you can provide, that ultimately I think speaks to a lot of people, and you're a good example of how to do that.
Right.
One of the things I hear with real estate, with when you start to get momentum, is that it's not something you necessarily want to retire from. Like a lot of these guys that are like doing at a super high level, they don't think about it like, oh, I just want to stop one day. Is that kind of where you're at?
Oh man, it's and that's that same talk we were just having. It motivates you more. Like it motivates you to continue doing more things. And so it's like, I probably always would have told myself, okay, if you get to 25 rental properties, like you're going to be done. Like you're not going to have to work another day in your life. You won't do anything. Like you can sit back, collect the rent checks and just like, and it's like, no, it's the complete opposite. You get to that point and you're like, all right, it's time to get to 125, And so yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Like, and that's why I say, like, I want to be able to, work when I want to work. Right. And so, yeah, it's like if we can get to that point where it's like you absolutely don't have to do anything, that's the ideal point, to where you can live an extremely comfortable life with not having to work. But exactly like you said, it's going to be really tough to just step back, and it's not going to happen. I mean, honestly, yeah. But you can scale it back for sure.
Right. Because with real estate, there's just so many, like it's almost a blessing and a curse. It's like you can do everything in real estate, and then it's also bad that you can do everything in real estate. Is there a part of it that feels heavy for you, that you're not as that you don't find as enjoyable? And
how? Oh, absolutely. And so that's why, that's why my partnership with my best friend Jake, that's why it works so well. Is because I'm definitely like a people person. I'm kind of like I basically do our sales side, sell our deals, go on appointments, all that kind of stuff. So my business partner Jake, he handles all the back end stuff, and that's the stuff that's really heavy for me, like putting the systems together, like getting on the phone with the companies and setting up the lists and all that kind of stuff. So that's the stuff that's not for me. Like that's, to me, again, that's kind of back to like high school of the stuff where I'm just like, damn, this is the stuff I don't enjoy it, and I just can't sit. And I think especially because I have ADD, it's hard for me to sit there and like try to like really be detailed and trying to get it all going. So that's the heavy side for me, but that's why my partnership works so well right now, is because he takes all that stuff on, he handles all that. So I don't have to. And I know, a lot of people say that too, is that, if you're not good at something, or if you don't want to do something, or if you don't like it, don't do it, because you're not going to do it at a high level. You're not going to do it well. So stick to the things that stick to the things that you're good at, because whatever those things are, you're going to, or the things that you enjoy, because those are the things that you're going to excel at.
Yeah, that's so true. And to me, it seems like it's almost a crucial piece if you want to get to a high level, right? You got to have different people on your team.
Oh
You
yeah,
can't necessarily do it all yourself.
for sure.
Where do you think is the best way to build that team, or to expand in a way that, is mutually beneficial?
I think it's different. One, I mean, I think that everyone's got a different like end goal, right? So I mean, it depends. I mean, do you want to build a business that's doing 200 grand a year? Do you want to build a business that's doing $1 million a year? Do you want to build a business doing 10 million a year, or 100 million a year? So I mean, based on those things, I think it's obviously all going to be about scaling the larger that you go. But I mean, that's just why it's tough, because it's like some people want to build it through cold calling, some people want to build it through direct mail, some people want to build it through relationships, right? So I've got a buddy who does, he does 140 flips a year, and he doesn't spend $1 on marketing, because he's built relationships that they bring him deals, and he's got the crews, and he's put everything together to where, I mean, he's got it so systemized, it's insane. And he's got a small like team that works for him of just like doing his day-to-day stuff. He's got full contracting teams. But like I said, he doesn't have a single sales agent, doesn't have a single, so I mean, he went the route of fully flipping. But then we've got other friends that have, like Jamil over at Key Glee. Like, dude, these guys have got like 60 sales agents. You know what I mean? But yet again, they don't spend $1 on marketing in the sense of going out and getting deals, because it's all relationship based. But they don't, I don't know if they have a single contractor, but then they've got 60 sales agents. So I mean, I think there's this. That's what's so. I got a helicopter one second.
Oh, you're good.
But that's just what's so unique about real estate, is that there are so many different routes to go, and so it's like you could have, like I said, these could be two businesses that are each doing $5 million a year in profit, but they're built completely different. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Us, the route that we went was, we kind of just started small. It was, like I said, it was me and Jake, and we kind of started adding one person here, one person there, and eventually till we got to that point where it was just like, okay, Jake and I are active in our business, but we don't have to like sit there every single day in the day-to-day of just figuring it all out. So I mean, and this year is supposed to be our best year. We're on pace to do over 2 million in assignments this year. So I mean, it's been, it's going to be a really good year. But I mean, we've got a super small team right now. We've got 4 people, basically that are working our business daily, and then we've got a couple cold callers that are virtual.
Man, that's great. Yeah, it seems like the more lean you can keep your business, right, the more of it you keep, right? Is that that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that. It's easier to manage, that's for sure. About what they're doing over there, where they have 60 sales agents, and it's like, man, that's a big business, man. It's a big payroll too. But I mean, obviously, if you've got 60 good employees, that are all doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, you're going to bring in a lot of money on it too. So, right,
because if you have one person and you add another one, in theory, that person shouldn't double. It should be twice. It should be, at least that's what a good employee would be.
For sure.
So for your business, what are some of your goals, like big picture? Do you want to get into multifamily? Do you want to own hotels? Are you trying to be Donald Trump?
Yeah, right. So I mean, honestly, some of our I don't want to say short-term goals, but some of our goals over the next few years, we're working on our 10th Airbnb right now. So we want to get that number up to 30. 33 is basically the number, because we've kind of seen that our Airbnbs will kind of make around $3,000 a month after all the expenses are paid. So we want to get that to around 100,000 a month worth of Airbnbs, Airbnb income. Yeah, we definitely want to start getting heavily into multifamily. We're doing, my wife and I, Sage, are doing our first kind of larger project right now. We're doing a 30, so it was 30 unit, but then we talked to the city and found out that they're actually allowing us to do, it's actually zoned for 38 units. So we're going to be starting a 38 unit new build complex downtown Prescott. So that's going to be the biggest thing we've ever done by far. It's kind of scary. There's a lot of moving pieces. But so, I mean, yeah, that's something that we're getting plans drawn up for and kind of getting ready to move forward with on that. But long term, I mean, no, man, we're getting we're under contract on a new office building right now. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't know for sure if we're going to move forward with it, if we're going to get it, but we're really hoping that we will. It's right over by, it's 10 seconds from my house and from Jake's house. So I mean, like, I can literally walk to the office, which would be super cool. But it's a really cool office, and we plan on just kind of building out our full team for everything. Starting new departments in our team, property management, possibly like a staging company for the flips and stuff. And so we've got different branches that we want to go. Obviously, want to continue our business, how it's going right now, but then also kind of start branching out into other areas of real estate and keep those in our office.
Dude, that's so cool. I'm so excited to watch all that happen. Just following you on Instagram, you can tell when someone's just going up and up. For someone looking at you that probably just thinks that's insane and they could never do it, what advice would you give to someone who sees you and thinks that's not impossible, or that it's impossible, or is it impossible?
Dude, I would say that a couple things. One, just make sure that you are doing your, like, so in some of my videos, I call it eating your vegetables. So it's like, it's doing something that you don't want to do, but you have to do it because it's one of those successful practices. And so, I mean, just make sure that you know what those things are, do them every day. Like you have to be consistent. So consistency is huge. And I mean, I would honestly say that's one of the biggest reasons why we've been able to put together what we have, is we've been insanely consistent. I rarely, took a day off during those 7 years of, from my calling. I mean, it was Monday through Friday, sometimes thrown in Saturdays. I would make sure no matter what, I'm getting at least my 4 hours in on the dialer. And so I think that the difference between, getting to that level, that next level, and not, is making sure that you are sticking to, those tasks that you have to do on a daily basis to get to where you want to be. That's one big thing. And then the other big thing is dude, you got to set big goals. I mean, if you're setting small goals, if you're saying, hey, say you did 50,000 in wholesales last year, and say you want to do, say you're setting your goals to say you want to do 75, you're going to set your sights on 75, like set your sights on 500,000 that next year, and so, I mean, I think that's another way that we've been able to be able to grow and make it realistic, is by setting bigger goals. And so, that's what I'd say, man. Those are the two things I'd say are super important, is just making sure you're doing those daily things to get you where you need to be. And then also just making sure that you are setting those higher goals, so that you actually have a higher, ceiling that you're kind of reaching for.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good tactical advice that someone can use, because, a lot of times the answer to that question is just like,
yeah, you can.
So, right. Yeah. Yeah. But that's something that, if you have the steps, just be consistent every day and show up. And even if it doesn't work, it's better. You for sure aren't going to get it if you don't even show up and get the work at all.
You're not even putting the work in, you're never going to see it. But I mean, that's the other thing too, is that if you're putting the work in and you're doing the things that you think that you should be doing, and it's not working after, quite some time, then reach out to someone who knows what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because they'll be able to help you. They'll be able to fast track your path of what's going on. So I mean, like, if you feel like you think you know what you're supposed to be doing, and you've been putting the work in for 6 months, and you're actually being true to yourself of doing the work, and it's not, then I would definitely reach out to someone and be like, hey, this doesn't really seem like it's working for me. And then someone will be able to kind of, deep dive your business and say, hey, this is where you're going wrong,
Yeah. What do you think stops people from taking a risk and betting on themselves, or even starting something that they want to achieve?
Dude, just being scared, being comfortable. I mean, it's comfort. It's what's the something, something about growth. I don't know. If when you're in your comfort zone, you don't grow. And so it's like, I mean, the biggest risk that I ever took, like literally ever, was when I was like 25 or so. And so my wife and I actually wasn't my wife at the time, just my girlfriend at the time, but we had saved up 35 grand at 25. And so that was like my everything, right? That was like my nest egg, 35 grand at 25. And I remember I had a flip opportunity, and I'd never done one before. And I was like, oh man, like I know this is I know this is a good deal. Like I know it is, but it's so scary because like we'd been saving, years to put that money together. And I was like, babe, I'm gonna do it. And she's like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And I was like, no, we're doing it. And she's like, okay, fine. And so we took 33 of that 35 grand and we put that into a flip, and we ended up making like 40 G's on the flip. So literally turned 35 into 75 at 25. And that was, for me, that was like, oh my God, this is real. Like, this is like, it was eye-opening for me. And I just think that that's one of those scenarios where most, 95% of people in this world, if they've got a $35,000 nest egg and they've spent years to save that up, they're not going to take the chance to take that and to risk it. Because, I mean, you never know, dude. Flips are so wild. Like every property is so different. You could have things come up on any property where it's a sewer line goes bad, or I mean, anything could happen where it's going to completely destroy your profits and you lose money. And so that's the thing that's scary about it. But we just took that jump and did it, and literally doubled our net worth in a matter of 2 months from where we were at. So
yeah, I mean, it seems like a risk probably in that moment because it's
right.
Everything, but the reality is, if you're the type of person that's going to take that risk, that there's going to be more opportunities, and eventually one of them's going to stick. It's not the last end all.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that was honestly a snowball effect of being stupidly risky. But I always talk about it too. It's calculated risk now at this point, though. You know what I mean? So, there's a difference between being really risky and dumb and taking calculated risks. And I mean, we always take calculated risks in the sense of, it's like, okay, worst case scenario, we might break even on this flip. But, best case scenario is we'll make 100 G's on it. You know what I mean? So that's a big thing that Jake and I have really stuck to, is making sure that we are being calculated with the risk we are taking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it does breed it, man. I mean, the more that you start doing it, and you see that it ends up paying off for you, the more that you do it, because you're like, you know what, like we've done this in the past, we know our numbers, like we just have to, like, it's in your head, man. You honestly, like, you get in your head about how it's too scary to do it, or you don't want to lose the money, or you don't want to fail, basically is what it is. You're scared of failure, and you don't want to do it. But it's like, dude, you have to fail. Everyone talks about that. Like, the more that you fail, the more successful you are, because the more that you learn from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree, man. Well, coming up on our time here, but a few questions I always like to ask is, what's a good book that you recommend?
Oh, I mean, obviously the original book for me, that my dad put in my hands when I was like 18 years old, was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I mean, that was the one that really kicked it all off for me, of like completely shifting my mindset. So that was the big one for when I first got started, for when I was younger. But the monk who sold his Ferrari, Game changer. Game changer.
Wow, I've never heard of that
Yeah.
one. I'll have to look it up.
You have to check it out. It's a kind of a story. It's cool because it's like a storyline book. But dude, there's so many nuggets in it. It's The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's awesome.
Sweet. All right, I'll go read that. And then finally, because this is the Get Wealth podcast, what's your definition of wealth?
For me, it is living your life how you want to live it, when you want to live it. Not having to worry. Like I said, it's basically my why. It's not having to do the things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
Many people I think of wealth as money. They think of it monetary, right? They'll think of houses, they'll think of cars, they'll think of bank accounts, stuff like that. But no, for me, wealth is time and being able to spend your time how you want.
Yeah, from what I've found just doing this podcast, it's like, yeah, money's a big part of it because it allows you to get to a point where you can actually think about what matters,
Yeah,
You're not just worried about the bills or whatever,
Yep. No, it's true. When you stop thinking about the bills, when you stop having to worry about those other things, life gets really fun, man.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
Well, I'm sure anybody watching this is motivated and is going to go get after it, whether it's playing Madden on the phone or, doing their grind. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. It's been great.
Hey, no worries, man. I appreciate you having me.
Where can people find you? Do you have just anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's Luke_Row, RO_. That's my handle on there. I'm on Facebook. You can reach out if you got any questions. And then also, just so you know, we're going to be, my partner and I are going to be rolling something out here probably in the next few weeks or so. It's going to be a texting service, and it's going to be really helpful for people getting started in wholesaling. It's basically going to be, we haven't decided how much it'll be per month, but it'll be somewhere between $30 and $50 a month. And you will be able to text any questions that you have, any issues that you're having, problems that are coming up with your wholesaling business or flipping business or whatever it is. Any questions that you want throughout the day, 24/7. And it will be Jake and I responding to the text. So you're literally going to have our advice on everything for you, for a really small fee every month. So.
Dude, that's so cool. Yeah, everybody go sign up for that. There's that's hidden value right there. That sounds awesome.
Hell yeah.
Alrighty. Luke Rotvold, everybody, get wealthy.
Thanks, man.